you, Tiffany, very much. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's memorial to remember and honor and celebrate the life of Kathy McGonigal. We appreciate you all coming, and we'll let Emery start. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. And the theme, one of the main themes today will be memories. And part of why we chose that song is for those of you who knew Auntie Kathy, you know she loved cats. So memories from cats seem very appropriate. We're going to start next. There are some, we're lucky to have here with us today 2 nephews, 2 nieces, and 1 niece-in-law from the McCaskey side of the family, from Aunt Kathy's side. So you'll be hearing from them today and a little bit from myself and my brother, as well as my sister's the one who's put together the music and the photograph. So welcome, and without further ado, I'm going to invite David McCaskey up to read a poem.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. It's very much appreciated. In loving memory of Aunt Kathy and the celebration of her life, I would today, this afternoon, like to read a poem. This poem is called Look to This Day by Kalidasky, Sanskrit written from 1500 years ago. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. It is brief in its brief course, like all the verities and realities of your existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendour of achievement, but are experiences of time. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. And today well lived makes yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well therefore to this day, as such is a salutation to the ever new dawn. I thought it was a lovely poem and fitting for Aunt Kathy. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you. I will now hand over to Amanda, yourself. Thank you.
Thanks very much, David. Can everybody hear okay?
Yes.
Okay. If you can't, just call out. So next, my brother is Andrew Marshall, Kathy's nephew, another nephew, is going to read memories from the Bermuda family. And then after that, we're lucky to have here Tiffany Fox, who's going to play a short musical interlude, because Auntie Kathy loved classical music, and hopefully you can all reflect on your memories of Kathy, or any memories you want to while you listen. And then after that, Andrew will read memories from a nephew who couldn't be here today because he lives in Australia, a bit far away, Gregor McCaskey. We'll talk about memories from that family, or side of the family, I should say.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. Memories from the Bermuda family. Maureen, sister-in-law, Amanda and Anne-Marie, nieces, and Andrew, the nephew. Catherine, Kathy McCaskey, later McGonigal, was born in the Gorbos on the south side of Glasgow in Scotland on the 21st of February 1931. She was the youngest of 6 children born to Joseph McCaskey and Catherine Kate McCaskey, née Forbes. Kathy had 2 older sisters, Margaret, Maggie, Anne, Annie, and 3 older brothers, Joseph, John, and Thomas, or Tommy. There were other brothers who did not survive infancy and had died before she was born. Kathy's early life was often marred by the time she was born into, i.e. Depression-era economy between the 2 world wars. Her dad, who was a medal recipient for bravery, struggled with health issues, having been a gas case due to chemical weapon use in World War I, which impacted the family. When World War II broke out, she and her youngest brother, Tommy, 4 of whose children are here today, were evacuated to Stranraer on the Scottish coast to avoid risk of Axis bombings that were mostly targeting British cities. In later years, Aunt Kathy shared that she wrote her mother to ask to return home every single week when she was in Stranraer, especially when Tommy was old enough to leave the protection of the evacuation to start working. She recalled her evacuation experience with great sadness. After the war ended, she was able to return to her life and school in Glasgow. It sounded as though life started to be more promising for her. Kathy was a good student, excelling at shorthand, typing, and other secretarial skills. In her mid-teens, she was working as a junior secretary at Parks, an automotive company, where she met trainee sheet metal worker, later draftsman, and jack of many trades, Edward McGonigal, known to his family as Ted, to most as Eddie, but always to Kathy as Edward. He used to tell the story that she was one of the office girls, and she would correct him, which was not too uncommon, to clarify that she was a junior secretary. He'd go on ignoring her, which was also not too uncommon, to tell their story, that he pretended he lived in her direction so he'd have an excuse to walk her home, which apparently was something the other men were a bit jealous of. Somehow he ended up being the one. Maureen, Kathy's sister-in-law, who was younger than Eddie by 12 years, remembers meeting Kathy during their lengthy courtship. The couple eventually married at St. Catherine Le Bourg Church in Ballarnock, Glasgow, which is still in Scotland, I believe. Shortly after their marriage, Maureen recalls saying goodbye to them at the train station as they headed south by train to take a ship to Australia. This marked the beginning of over 60 years of travel and adventure together. While the adventures began with time in Australia, they did return to Scotland. There are varying family stories about this. Gregor will tell one he learned from his mother. Amanda recalled being told Aunt Kathy was homesick for Scotland. However, as soon as she returned, the travel bug also hit her. Around this time, Eddie saw an advertisement for a job in Bermuda, and Mr. Friesenbrook was in Glasgow conducting interviews. He was offered a job at Masters, so Kathy and Eddie headed to Bermuda in July 1959 to work and travel some more. Soon after arriving in Bermuda, Kathy met lifelong friend Audrey Miller, now Scott. She also made other dear friends, Ruth Griffiths, Barbara Rigaud, Betty MacArthur, Holly Henderson, Joy Amaral, Hazel Steele. These are among some of the many friends Kathy made through her life. At first, Kathy worked at Eagles Airlines on Front Street. Later, she worked at a subsidiary of Oppenheimer's Diamond Company, and she retired from work as a secretary to the Bermuda Nurses Council. After a few years in Bermuda, they planned to continue to travel and applied to work in the USA, intending to relocate to California. However, by then Maureen had moved to Bermuda and niece Amanda was born. Excuse me. They decided to stay in Bermuda. Nonetheless, their travel adventures continued. They traveled far and wide, visiting every continent, including the 2 trips to Antarctica. They traveled to snow ski, skiing many times in the Alps, South America, Canada, and the US. They also traveled to witness solar eclipses, both being members of the Astronomical Society. Kathy was its secretary for many years. They particularly enjoyed cruising, enjoying the ballroom dancing and dining with other passengers. They met many people on the cruise ship, some of whom became lifelong friends. Ballroom dancing on cruises was not Kathy's only involvement with dance. As a member of the Caledonian Society and past secretary, she and Edward also enjoyed dancing at the annual Caledonian Ball and other events. Additionally, she and her friend Betty MacArthur taught Scottish country dancing for many years at the church hall at Christ Church in Warwick. I remember many of those events, not so much for the dancing, which I wasn't really partaking in, but they often had good Halloween parties and lots of goodies at the end of each night. Kathy and Eddie were members of the Badminton Association at BAA, and she enjoyed badminton and keep fit classes. She also loved classical music and was a member of the Bermuda Philharmonic Choir and took up the piano as an adult. Classical music was nearly always on when she was at home, or she was humming a tune to herself as she puttered about the house. Kathy was proud of the home Sundowner that she and Eddie purchased in the 1960s. They called it Sundowner from their time in Australia, where Sundowner was referred to as somebody who slept and made home wherever they were at sunset. Sundowner became the center of a busy life, keeping a clean and organized home, knitting and embroidery, doing puzzles, practicing piano, keeping up with the minutes for the organization she was secretary of, decorating for holidays and entertaining. She enjoyed hostessing dinners by the fire in winter months, summer barbecues in the lower garden, and kite flying parties on Good Friday on the Warwick Academy field, which bordered their home. Part of the pleasure Kathy experienced from living at Sundowner was a relationship formed with neighbors. She and Eddie developed many good friendships with several of the neighbors, including Coopers, Medways, the Butterfields, Muirheads, among others. Travel was not always for exploration and adventure, of course. It also was to stay connected with family. Kathy's brother John, wife Mary, and their son Gregor, Ian, and Gordon in Australia, all of whom visited Bermuda, and Kathy and Eddie visited them on several occasions too. Trips back to Scotland were nearly annual to keep up with Kathy and Eddie's siblings and offspring. They also regularly went to New York to keep up with brother and sister-in-law Joe and Margaret and their children, Lynn and Joseph, as well as their spouses and offspring. Kathy always loved it when her siblings, in-laws, nieces, and nephews around the globe visited, wrote letters, sent cards, and postcards. In later years, called or video chatted. Even as Alzheimer's stole her memory, she would light up and smile and read cards and enjoy photos. Whether the names and faces prompted recall or whether the younger generations resembled her generation, so she thought that is who was in the photos, who can say? It was evident to anyone observing by her smiles and focused concentration that she knew these were family. While Alzheimer's disease marred the end of her life, she seemed to feel cared for as she kept on smiling and chuckling, laughing frequently. As niece Lynn Augusenti recalls from her time looking after Auntie Kathy, we are grateful to all her caregivers. During this difficult time, Estella, Laurie, Clotilde, Joanna, for her sisters-in-law, brothers-in-law, and offspring who kept in touch with her. By 2016, Alzheimer's had stolen her memory of Sundowner and the Jones Lane neighborhood being hers, and it became important she have a higher level of skilled nursing care. She checked into Westmeath, at first living in the residential area, which she seemed to think was a guest house. Later, she moved to the memory care unit, and we are very grateful for all the good care nurses Jennifer, Glenda, Claire, Kathy, and Deanna and their teams provided her. Kathy died at Westmeath with Maureen's friend nurse Sue, who's here today, caring for her on May 25th, 2025. While the beginning and end of her life seemed to have been more difficult than one would wish, she also enjoyed many of the 65 good years that she had when she pursued interests. She enjoyed exploration and adventure through travel, deep connections with family, friends, and neighbors, and lived a good life. So ultimately, what more could be asked for? Thank you. Hello, it's me again. Now we have some memories from the other side of the world. Memories from the Australian Family by Gregor McCaskey. I was pleased to be asked by Amanda to share a few memories of our Aunt Kathy with you today. My name is Gregor McCaskey, and Kathy was my father John's youngest sibling. Kathy, as you've probably already heard, was one of 6 surviving children. She had 2 sisters and 3 brothers, all of who have predeceased her. Kathy has also had 2 older brothers who died in infancy before she was born. So with Kathy's death in May, we've lost the last of that generation of our family, all born during and shortly after the Great War, and in Kathy's case, during the Great Depression. I was an infant when Kathy and Eddie moved to Bermuda, so for my whole life, when talk turned to Kathy, Bermuda was usually in the conversation, unless, of course, she and Eddie were on one of their many cruises, or in Scotland, or in Rochester visiting respective family. When sitting down to write this, my memories of Kathy came like snapshots, so I've noted them and tried to put them in some order. While my family and Kathy and Eddie lived almost 11,000 miles apart, Kathy and Eddie were always part of our lives. Their names often came up in conversation, and I remember often keenly reading their letters sent to us in Melbourne. And I recall plenty of stamp collectors keen to get their hands on the rare Bermuda stamps used to send them. My earliest recollection of Kathy is of standing in Montague Street in the West End of Glasgow, off Great Western Road, on a sunny afternoon saying goodbye to people. This, I think, was in 1966, because it was in that year that my family sailed to Australia for the second time, after a brief return to Glasgow between March and October that year. I recall Kathy and Eddie were there as well. I also remember that day being dressed like my twin brother Gordon in a colorful t-shirt that had been given us by Auntie Kathy, and the earlier fight over which brother got which t-shirt. Perhaps that's why twin children were often dressed the same. When newly married, Kathy and Eddie took what is now almost a rite of passage for young folk when they began a long working holiday overseas, in their case to Australia in the late 50s. This was a few years before my family first migrated there. These days, everyone is doing it, but in the 50s, this kind of overseas working holiday by young people was much less common. The story I heard through my mother was that Kathy and Eddie, while here, had visited and liked northern Queensland's city of Townsville and planned to return there to live after settling their affairs in Scotland. To hear the way my mother told it, Eddie, while back in Scotland, saw and applied for a job in Bermuda, was offered the job and accepted it, and so Townsville was crossed off the list. In retrospect, I think they made the right choice. Some of you here today may know the veracity of this story better than my mother. In speaking to my older brother Ian yesterday about his memories of Kathy, he reminded me of their visit to Melbourne in 1986. I'd forgotten this, but both Kathy and Eddie had come here to Melbourne and stayed with my parents with the idea that the southern hemisphere was to provide a much better view of Halley's Comet. Eddie, as a keen astronomer, was happy to take advantage of this very rare occurrence. While the planets may have aligned for Kathy and Eddie, they didn't for me. I was away on holiday at the time and missed them. I thought I would see them again sometime, but never did. We always think we've more time than we have. On speaking to Kathy and Eddie years later, Eddie remembered many of the places that he and Kathy had traveled to, which included the Queensland town of Toowoomba, about 80 miles due west of Brisbane, and only accessible up the very long and very steep Great Dividing Range. Years later, I spent 3 years working in Toowoomba, and hearing Eddie describe the drive to Toowoomba up through the range with struggling car brought back memories. Eddie also told me of his and Kathy's time living in the Melbourne suburb of Essendon, just north of the city. This was a big surprise, for at that time, when he was telling me this on the phone, I was working at the Essendon Football Club, one of the country's 18 professional Australian rules clubs. If that wasn't enough, he remembered the street that he and Kathy were living at the time, which was the next street over to the ground was, where the ground was and where I worked. As the great Melburnian Edna Everidge would say, spooky. My parents, John and Mary, upon retirement, spent months each year overseas, and Bermuda was often on their itinerary. In going through my father's photos after he died, there were plenty of photos of the four of them at Sundowner, usually in the garden, always in sunshine, and often with a drink. It sure looked like good times. In late 1982, I spent 10 days in Sundowner with my girlfriend. Kathy and Eddie could not have been more welcoming. I remember being driven around in their Volkswagen Beetle, taken to the Bermuda Athletic Club, in those days a big drafty hall, taken out to dinner, swimming in the water off the ferry stop near their house, and generally enjoying the island. In the evening, while eating dinner, the radio was playing classical music, interrupted by the frequent call signal, "You are listening to beautiful Bermuda." It was a lovely time, and we were both treated so well. But no TV, what was that about? When my children, Callum, Stuart, and Heather, now adults, were born, Kathy would send Christmas cards every year without fail, with a gift for each of them. Kathy sent these for years and years, despite never meeting her Australian great-niece and 2 Australian great-nephews. Kathy was interested in their goings-on and generous with her gifts. As my children got older, I had them write letters back to thank Kathy, sometimes including their drawings. When Amanda emailed me with news of Kathy's death, I was saddened but not surprised. For years, Amanda has kept us all regularly informed about how Kathy was going, and I thank her very much now for doing so. Kathy's last years were not her best. Injured by falls, slowed by COVID, and challenges of old age, and of course dementia. As a child growing up in the Gorbals during the Depression, living through the Second World War, when she suffered the distress of being evacuated for her safety and losing both of her parents while still in her 20s, life may have looked like it promised little. But Kathy lived a long, and as far as I can tell, a full, contented life. She had brothers and sisters with whom she remained close all of her life. She stayed interested in extended family and kept in touch with her many nieces and nephews as well. As well as her great nieces and nephews. With Eddie, she enjoyed a long and happy union. Together they traveled extensively, socialized, and kept up many interests. Kathy enjoyed a good health for many years and enjoyed the love and respect of many here today. Rest in peace, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, another niece, Anne Robertson, who's come from Glasgow, will read a poem.
Thank you everyone for coming along. This poem is written by someone who I've never heard of, Rabindranath Tagore. It's called Farewell, My Friends. Farewell, my friends. It was beautiful as long it lasted, the journey of my life. I have no regrets whatsoever, save the pain I leave behind. Those dear hearts who love and care, and the strings pulling at my heart and soul, the strong arms that held me up when in my own strength let me down. At every turning of my life, I came across good friends, friends who stood by me, even when time raced by me. Farewell, farewell, my friends. I smile and bid you goodbye. No shed, no tears, for I need them not. All I need is your smile. If you feel sad, do think of me, for that's what I like. When you live in the hearts of those you love, remember you never die.
just be a second. Technical things, always an issue, right? That wasn't Auntie Kathy's favorite thing, I'll have to say, about the world, technology.
Can't I
Okay, thanks very much, Anne Marie. And now Anne Robertson is going to come back up to read a Robert Burns poem. We need one of those at a Scottish person's service, I think. And then after that, her nephew, Robert McCaskey, will share some memories from the Scottish McCaskey side of the family.
Hi there. This is written in the 17th century, so it's a wee bit old. So it's written in a Scottish dialect, so you may or may not, probably not understand quite a lot of the words. But just really to tell you, the word Joe, it's not a name. It stands for my love or sweetheart. Okay. John Anderson, my Joe. John, when we were first acquaint, your looks were like the raven, your bonny brow was brent. But now your brow is belled, John, your locks are like the snow. But blessings on your frosty pow, John Anderson, my Joe. John Anderson, my Joe. John, when we climb the hill together, and mony a canty day, John, we've had with een another. Now we maun totter down, John, and hand in hand we'll go, and sleep together at the foot. John Anderson, my Joe.
Thank you, Anne. And now Robert, if you'd like to come up and share some memories.
Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Hello. A lot of the things I'm going to say is on repeat because I'm the first speaker, but great minds think alike. That's what I'm saying. So if you just bear with me, you've heard some things before. Okay. Welcome, family and friends, to share and celebrate Aunt Cathy's life. For those who don't know me, I'm Cathy's nephew and godson, and a friend you just haven't met. In the past, over the years, both Aunt Cathy and Uncle Eddie have invited myself and family over to see Bermuda. Well, I finally got here, but sadly, neither Aunt Cathy nor Uncle Eddie are here to greet me. But I know as we are gathered here all today, that they will both be looking down on us all with a warm smile. Bermuda lies deep throughout my childhood memories, although always thought of it as a mysterious island, just like somewhere from the Treasure Island book, or an island from the Pirates of the Caribbean film. I would like to share some childhood memories with you whilst growing up in Castlemilk, a large housing scheme in Glasgow. One year Aunt Cathy sent for either a birthday or a Christmas gift a pair of metal shoes with giant springs sandwiched between two metal plates, which I can only describe as giant springy platform shoes, better known as ankle breakers. They look great, like something you would see in the Beano comic strip worn by cartoon characters Dennis the Menace or Billy Whiz. They strapped onto your feet, and the idea was that you bounced on them. But the size of the springs, you might think you could have bounced over a wall or maybe a small tree. But the reality of these shoes were more often than not resulting in either twisted or sore ankles for the day. Another early memory that I have is every year when Aunt Cathy and Uncle Eddie came through to visit us in Glasgow, a photo slide show was set up using an old screen projector in our living room. We as kids had to watch these same slides mostly of Christmas time and family summer holidays to local seaside resorts over and over again. Thanks for that, Aunt Cathy and Uncle Eddie. Although having said that, I know that they really enjoyed these slideshows, as they always had genuine interest in our lives and well-being growing up. I remember being excited and pleased to see them both as they fussed over us and took us on day trips in their rented car, and usually spoiling us, always spoiling us, I should say. Each year they would send a birthday card and some dollars, and I remember waiting excitedly for the post to arrive with the Bermudian postage stamp on it. This made me feel special on my birthday as a child. Happy memories indeed. Both Aunt Cathy and Uncle Eddie were so thoughtful and generous. In later years, when our children arrived, she would always make a point to visit us and showed great interest in them and what they were doing at school. When Aunt Cathy came to our house for tea, she always preferred plain Scottish cuisine, usually mince and tatties or fish and chips. Although both myself and family didn't see Aunt Cathy and Uncle Eddie as often as we would have liked, they have shared many special moments in our lives, and I'm proud to call them Auntie and Uncle. As you know, Aunt Cathy was the youngest of 6, born to Joseph and Catherine McCaskey. She was a clever, independent lady, probably born before her time, as it was a man's world then. She had a cheery, outgoing personality. She was warm, thoughtful, and kind-hearted, with a sharp wit and a broad smile. Cathy and Eddie were well-travelled, travelling the world together, making and sharing a life of memories, making new friends wherever they went. They had adventures that probably most people can only dream about. Aunt Cathy and Uncle Eddie left Scotland for Bermuda, as you already know, in 1959. Not long after I was baptised, she was my godmother, although I don't remember much about it. I would like us to remember Aunt Cathy before she had Alzheimer's disease, such a cruel disease indeed, which robs us of all our precious memories. Although Aunt Cathy's end life was not of any quality for a long time, previously she had enjoyed a good, long and healthy full life. She is now at peace and is reunited with her beloved husband, Eddie. Okay, could also take this opportunity, could I thank the marshals for caring and looking out for Aunt Cathy over the past years, especially during the COVID period, and in particular Amanda for keeping us informed. And also thanks for organising this memorial service celebrating Aunt Cathy's life. And also we are grateful to Westmeath Care Home for their professionalism, efficient healthcare service, and for looking after her general well-being also over the years in their care. So I'm just going to finish off with a few words. I would just like to say, just remember, those that we love don't go away. They walk beside us every day. Goodbye, and God bless you, Aunt Cathy, from the McCaskies.
There's a little poem called Afterglow. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo, whispering softly down the ways of happy times and laughing times and bright sunny days. I'd like tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun, of happy memories that I leave when life is done. It was by Helen Lowry Marshall. I don't think it's any relation.
Thank you very much, Andrew and Robert and David and everybody, Gregor as well, for their memories of Aunt Kathy. And now I'd like to share an invitation for everyone to continue to remember Aunt Kathy and chat and have some laughs, because she did like a good laugh. She did always chuckle and laugh. So please join us for afternoon tea. Auntie Kathy loved her tea and she loved her sweets. We have provided some savory, but we've provided some things in her memory too. So this will be the end of the official part of the service, except for one other thing, which is we'd like everybody to join in and sing Auld Lang Syne. Now, I do not sing, so I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and then everyone can start. The words are in your program. Okay, so 1, 2, 3.
Everyone join in.
Thank you, everybody. So as I said, please join us for afternoon tea. What we're going to do is just move the chairs out of the way, and we'll bring some tables in. And in the meantime, people can start going to help themselves to drinks. There's cool drinks down at the end in the first area you came in. There's tea just outside this door, and then there's food behind you in the kitchen. So please stay and join us in celebrating Auntie Kathy's life some more. And thank you so much for coming.
Yes, that's fine. And, yeah, and I thought Anthony was gonna say something because I was trying to say, help her. He never said anything.